Hi, HumblNation, and welcome back to Money and Politics. It's Wednesday, August the 4th, and today we're going to be doing something that I think is pretty special. We're going to be bringing in one of our members of HumblNation that I met by doing this program. And a while back I asked people, where are you watching these videos from? And I got responses from at least 20 different nations. And that's something that when you're watching this, to think, HumblNation is just not here in America, or just not in Canada. It's people watching from South Africa, from many parts of Europe and Asia. And one of the great joys, too, is I get to meet people. And one of those I've met is Arthur Wilkes, who's joining us today from Victoria, Canada. And Arthur and I have, he emailed me, as I so often put my email up. He emailed me, and we got to talking about different things, and he is the one, by the way, who introduced me to big digital assets. That's one of the stories we'll be talking about today. But first, Arthur, tell us just a little bit about how long have you been investing? And I know, of course, speaking about Humbl, we'll be talking about Humbl and some other things. We'll start off with Humbl. Why don't you just give us a thumbnail behind how long you've been investing, and then what attracted you to begin investing in Humbl?
Sure. Once again, nice to meet everybody. Thank you very much, Terry, for having me on. So I've been investing for about a year. I had one of my close friends that got investing in the cryptocurrency space and did very well, and was telling me about it while I was going through my my biology school, where I was doing my biology degree. And he was telling me, I've done very well. I've made X amount of that's incredible. And so this sparked my interest to get involved. And I really see that in life, people make it on multiple income streams. So I thought, hey, I need to get started. And so I started to take this seriously and get involved. And what really sparked my interest in Humbl was some of the challenges and problems I saw within my banking, the bank I was with, and the holds on my account and the accessibility to money. These things were obstacles I saw that in our society is an issue, and I saw Humbl as a solution for that problem. And typically I like to look into the future to solve a problem, and I think that's a good and reasonable way to invest, to be ahead of the trend.
And I think you also have a reason to go to Mexico, and was that one of the reasons?
Yes.
That you, why don't you tell us just briefly that story?
Sure.
Because we hear about Humbl, everyone who's watching this has been involved in Humbl for a while and heard me talk many times. But sometimes I think it gets to be theoretical in people's minds, and we focus more on what the stock price is as compared to what the company is actually there to do and what problems it's going to solve. So you kind of ran into one of those problems that a lot of times, you in Canada, we in America, in North America here, we don't necessarily run into these problems that people in other countries do.
Sure. So to start, the reason you're mentioning about being in Mexico is I had a brother in 2017. He passed away of cancer, of kidney cancer. And he was given a death sentence in Canada, where the oncologists and cancer doctors were working with him and said, "There's no way we can help you." So Louis, that was my brother's name, he decided that he wanted to go and try to do some care that was beyond what the Canadian system could do. And so we went down to Tijuana, Mexico, where some of the doctors that were doing immunotherapy and that kind of work that was more some of the side of science that wasn't fully proven yet, but was on the cusp of growth to be able to try to create a solution rather than this like accepting what the doctors here were saying. And so we went down to Tijuana, and we had to go through San Diego and stuff like that. And what was very interesting, how this relates to Humbl, is the videos in the initial presentation were in San Diego, where the headquarters is of Humbl, and right across the border where they're doing like the one video was the border crossing where I crossed on a daily basis. So I thought, oh, this is really unique. Like I've experienced some of these places where they had the video on with the presentation of Humbl. I'm like, I gotta invest in this, and also it being a solution for the problem I face with my bank, and also, carrying American dollars across the border and exchanging it for pesos, and having it in these other countries, having a more cash-driven society with what they do, like the Latin American-based countries. I have an uncle that lives in Chile, and he says on how they're very heavy on the cash-based society, and so you can really see what Humbl is doing and where they're getting involved with in the future on accessibility to money and accessibility to digital assets.
And that's, the ability to move money, often we take it for granted, but that's the thing, that it's not something really to be taken for granted as we go to other parts of the world. And Brian has said it, I'm saying it, when you're walking around, if you have to deal with paper money all the time, it's a great deal of friction, I think is that term I like, in transactions. Because if you're in a country, who wants to walk around with the equivalent of $300 on you, where you could have your money taken away? There's no protection of that paper money. So obviously, that's just one of the things that Humbl's addressing, and certainly not the only thing as we go forward. But before we go into was there anything else you wanted to say about Humbl at this point? Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Whatever else you were going to say, just what are your own thoughts about Humbl? Is it a good investment? As we are recording this on August the 4th, the market's open. At the moment, we're down in around 81 cents, which frankly, I didn't think it would go down this point. I have said over the months that we've been doing these videos, you're buying a company, you're not buying a stock price. Stocks prices move all the time. So I would say, look at what the company is doing, look at the management, look at the story, and are they progressing? But that said, I don't want to lead the witness, as they say in law. Why don't you just share whatever your thoughts are on Humbl yourself?
Sure. Well, you want to be long on an investment. Like when you go and buy an investment and buy a stock, you're going to want to hold it. If you want to have a certain reason for buying the stock, first and foremost. So when you look at Humbl, for me, I saw it solving a problem. And some of these businesses, when they have like an increase in the share price, sometimes it's built on hype and sometimes it's built on fundamentals. And for me, like I wanted to hold Humbl long because I saw the value in the stock that eventually, once this company grows, that it can be something significant. I wasn't looking for a quick pump. I was looking for something to hold long term, to say that this is going to grow into something significant that's going to solve significant problems in our society. And I saw this is one of those goals. This is one of these businesses that can do that. And so right now, I'm not looking at the share price. If anything, it's a buying opportunity to buy more. Definitely, I believe Brian Foote is looking out for the best interests when you look at the preferred B shares that have been brought up, on how he owns 40+% of those, or was it 45% of those B shares? So he's, I believe, using some of these shares. Also, he's not paying himself. That was another thing that was mentioned. So he's using these shares to grow the business. If he's going to make an acquisition, he's got to have multiple areas. With the whole point of Humbl was Web 3.0 was to advance the blockchain technology, and like having, when you look at our internet system, this was a way with blockchain to prevent things for like fraud and like internet protection and stuff like that. When it comes to storing digital assets, you want it stored in a secure, safe manner, right? So you can't get hacked or anything like that. Humbl is going to be also more than just a payment platform. It's going to also have these digital assets, and that's where the Brian Foote mentioned tokenization of the blockchain. This is where those comments come in, and so this is going to be an evolution of a long-term hold, in my opinion. to where the major benefits and possible benefits of what this company may provide could happen in the future. This is not something that you want to hold for a year and then sell it. You want to be able to hold this long term, because if the company continues to grow and continues to be a leading innovator on what they're doing, that's where you're going to be successful. It's getting in at the ground floor and then being able to sell at the right time or continue to hold or whatever you wish to do. But yeah, this is basically the future. And basically by getting in at the ground floor and seeing ahead of time the future, that's going to allow this investment to be successful rather than acting like a day trader.
Let me just say to the viewers, hopefully you're still watching. We're about 10 minutes in. A lot of times people are watching, for 10 minutes and longer. I just want to say we're going to talk about some other things, so I encourage all the viewers to continue watching, because we're going to bring up some other stocks and ideas that you want to hear about. But what's interesting before we leave Humbl, what I would say, in addition to what you said, is this has made me think about things that I never really had to think about before, or didn't think about them very much. And what I think Humbl is addressing are these problems in the economy that, like we said, and I've used this example before, and my friend Jane King, who covers Wall Street, but she went on a business trip about 18 months ago to Hanoi, Vietnam. She had to carry like 400,000 pieces of paper in her purse, 400,000 of their local currency, so she could pay the cab driver. That's an example of where, when you're dealing with the paper money, it gets to be kind of ridiculous, and again, where that slows down. I tell people the way all of us make money are through transactions. The easier the ability to do a transaction, the more likely it is. And conversely, the more difficult it is, the less likely. She had to have money at her hotel. She had to do this like 3 weeks before she went over there, so that there would be enough currency available when she wanted to leave on a Sunday to take a cab drive to the airport. When you extrapolate that around the world, that's one thing. When we look at the homes we live in, we have all this wealth that we build up in our residential real estate that we cannot access. Imagine if our homes were tokenized the same way that we have stocks in a company are tokenized. And if you need, my transmission went out, I need $3,000 to have it fixed. You could sell shares of a company to get $3,000 to pay for your car repair. You can't sell a bedroom in your house. You can't sell one, if you got a 2-car garage, one bay in your garage. So it becomes that kind of a problem. You can extrapolate that to where tokenization is going to transform all sorts of areas of our economy that I think we just really haven't even focused on as yet. And not to mention the NFTs and the ability to say, I bought a movie clip and it's, like The Godfather, drop the gun, take the cannoli. I mean, imagine if you had that and every time it runs somewhere, if you own that, I don't know, you get 25 cents or something, you got a kind of a ka-ching. So there are going to be markets open that don't even exist, as well as, I think, improvements in markets that have existed.
One thing I was going to say, Terry, about that, it was really interesting what you said about selling something and paying a bill. One thing, I believe in like the second shareholders meeting, Brian Foote, or second or third shareholders meeting, Brian Foote mentioned something about evolving the Humbl app on a way of storing cryptocurrency on the app, and eventually generating an interest yield. And so a lot of these other companies that we're going to share with the viewers, specifically Voyager Digital, does that. And I can see where the evolvement of like people storing their money, they call them these stable coins that are equated to the US dollar, and then earning an interest yield on that money and using that interest yield money to go and pay bills. and seeing that this is going to be an involvement of the ecosystem of the banking industry. And saying, instead of going with this bank that offers you very low interest rate yield, people may be prone to look at, I can earn a higher interest yield with the same sort of risk over here with this, with another avenue.
That's
for
the banking industry is just one that people are used. I was saying this to a friend. He said, "Do you think this is a good time to buy Humbl?" And I go, "Yeah." And in one part, I said, and I'm not predicting this, folks. I'm just throwing this out as an example for people to consider. But if you look at somebody like Chase, a big company, and there's a number of, let's just take Chase as one example. They have all these different branches. They have something like 100,000 employees. They're doing what they've been doing for years. They know, sitting in their executive suite, look at what's happening. We are looking here at this digital financial revolution, and we have to, if we're Chase or if we're Bank of America or whatever, we have to be able to get in this game. And when you look at someone like Brian Foote and the people that he's hired, Chase doesn't the guys like Brian Foote are not like school teachers. They're not like plumbers or garage mechanics. There's a lot of garage mechanics. There's a lot of teachers. There's not a whole lot of talent out there that really understands the blockchain in a depth of knowledge like a Brian Foote does. And, when you're looking at an 81 cent, 82 cent current price as we tape this on August the 4th of Humbl, one can well imagine, and I'm not predicting this would happen, that the guys at Chase go, wow, let's buy Humbl. Because we need to get in this game, and Brian Foote would say, I'm not looking to sell, but if you make me an offer I can't refuse, then the point is, to you investors who go, well, where's this going? It may go that direction. I don't know. Maybe Chase walks in and say, hey, we're going to make you guys a heck of a lot of money and overnight, but we want you to be part of the Chase family. I'm just saying, there's so many different directions the value of this could go. One has to look at those scenarios as an option. Now, that said, what do you want to talk about first here, Arthur, as far as because Arthur introduced me to the fact that there are these platforms trading the digital currencies, which, speaking of being old time like Chase, I'm an old timer. I still send checks out a lot of times in the mail, kind of thing, and I'm accustomed to just buying stocks the old-fashioned way, and so here we have it. Guys like me have to get into the digital revolution. You want to start off with what, Voyager or something else?
So we get too big, and I can tell the story and brief story on how I found out about it, and it's always in life you want to keep your eyes open to opportunities. Let me
real quick. I'm going to bring up. We're talking about big digital assets, and here's the stock symbol in yellow there. So, folks, if you want to look into it, there it is. Now, that said, I'm sorry to interrupt, and let me let you go.
No worries. Absolutely. So with big digital assets, I was actually driving my car, and I was listening to the radio out here in Victoria. And Big Digital Assets is a Vancouver company, is one of the main headquarters. And so they're doing a lot of advertisement for a company called Netcoins, which Big Digital Assets owns. And Big Digital Assets they're more involved in the regulation side of cryptocurrency. So that was a big part of what they do. And so also the problems in the cryptocurrency space were problems with making transfers of cryptocurrency. Like, you buy it on one platform and you have to, store it on an app somewhere else, and you'd have to transfer it. And it was a lot of time to buy this in a lot of cases. Like, there's a lot of steps in place. And so Big Digital Assets was providing a secure place for people to get involved with the crypto space and not have to go through all this nonsense to get a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever they were buying. So I saw this as a solution because I also at one point got involved with crypto, and I was buying Ethereum, and it was a runaround to get a hold of this. So that I saw this as a solution to that problem, number one. And also the advertisement for it, drew me to it, and I looked more into this company and found that they were growing month over month. They're growing huge. They're making big revenues every month that people were using their platform to buy cryptocurrency because of all the money printing that's gone on in the United States. That most of the world's currency is built on the American currency, and people were going and buying cryptocurrency as a hedge against inflation was one of the main stories behind this. And also this being a store of value. People talk about Bitcoin.
Let me briefly, Arthur, I'm just going to bring up this graphic here so that people can see big digital assets as they see, it's trading for $1.13 American. I think you were saying in Canada, Canadian dollars different, relative, so there's price differences between the Canadian market and the American market. But and this is the American market, so it's $1.13. And I brought this up, I think the first time I did bring it up because you brought it up, which was to me, you introduced me to it, that this was, I think, at about $1.02 at the time. So we can see that it has gone up since then.
Yes, and you can see the news on that they're making acquisitions. They're getting involved with the space of regulation. That's a big thing where you saw like Binance get banned from a few different places in the United States and had some trouble because of regulation. And this company is more on the side of addressing regulation correctly and working with the government, which is important. But my main reason myself for buying this is I saw this problem in the crypto space of getting a hold of cryptocurrency and being able to actually get exposure to it. But also I saw it as an opportunity not to just buy one cryptocurrency, but to actually look at the entire market, because these, you could say, exchanges, like digital assets, net coins, which they own, it's making revenues based on people buying cryptocurrency. It's very much like the analogy of the gold rush, buying a shovel, or people, you're the guy that sells the shovels rather than the guy trying to, find the gold.
Like Levi Strauss, made a lot of money selling blue jeans. The miners may not have made money, but Levi Strauss did. So big digital assets, what they're doing is running a platform, and I think I said before, maybe another analogy is just as I use Schwab, and Schwab would make money, or traditionally make money through the trading of stocks. That's what big digital assets is doing with the bitcoins and the digital coins. When I say Bitcoin, I know that's a brand name, but I tend to use it generically, almost like we say Xerox for copying. But anyway, so I just wanted to make it real clear. You can get lost. It's easy to get lost as we go into these new concepts here. But you're saying that big digital assets, and again, we still see it here, you're saying that they are making money now. The revenue is growing pretty well. Actually, this is the one I think you said is somewhat tied to the valuation of Bitcoin, isn't it? So that as Bitcoin goes up, this goes up?
Correct. And so what's kind of happening with that is this company, Big Digital Assets, they have a treasury. So they own two companies. They own a company called Netcoins, and then they have another division that works with the government called Blockchain Intelligence Group. And so basically Netcoins, they have a cryptocurrency treasury. So they own X amount of Bitcoin. So this is why the stock price follows the price of Bitcoin, because if they have assets in Bitcoin, their value of Bitcoin goes up, their stock price is going to go up and follow pursuit. And then where they're making the revenues itself, where you're seeing like the quarterly financial reports, is based on cryptocurrency volatility, and that's based on generating money from trading from people that are logging on, getting access to their platform and buying and selling cryptocurrency. They're making revenues based upon that.
Now, you also told me about coin market cap.
Correct.
Let me bring that in and tell us what this is and how does this fit into what we're talking about in the financial digital revolution.
Sure. So when it pertains to big digital assets, and let's start with that too, and then looking at these graphs, you'll see these number fluctuations, and this is people that are trading cryptocurrencies throughout the day and seeing kind of people are buying and selling and
is this what we're looking at, the coin market cap, and this is, folks, coinmarketcap.com if you want to go to this site. Is this what we're looking at basically? Is it a trading platform, or is it just a listing of the trades that are going on other platforms?
Listing of trades going on other platforms,
okay,
from what I understand.
So it's a way quickly of looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, Binance Coin, and different things that we see there listed.
Correct. And so basically when you see these values change, like for instance at the top, the global crypto market cap is 1.62 trillion, 3.72 increase.
And that's right under where it says today's cryptocurrency prices by market cap. It's right under there is where Arthur is referencing. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so like usually when you have the cryptocurrency market have green days, and also cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, like if it has a day where it's going up, big digital assets will also go up from what I've found and what I've tracked. So looking at some of the coins that you could say big digital assets holds, like in their treasury, it's going to follow pursuit of this because they're also making an investment in Bitcoin by themselves buying Bitcoin. With the revenues that they make quarter over quarter, when they see a deal on Bitcoin, they're buying Bitcoin, from what I understand. And also because they're holding that asset, their stock is going to reflect on when you have an increase of the cryptocurrency price. So when I'm looking at that, it's a way of, you could say, with some of the coins that they hold, it's a way of being more diversified and also owning a business rather than owning a coin. There's an argument that a lot of investors have said is like, why own cryptocurrency? Because they say it's not backed by the US or Canadian dollar. But when you own a business that's making revenue, that might be a better way to get involved with the cryptocurrency market by actually owning a business that makes positive revenue.
Yeah, again, it's a way of not being the coal miner, but being Levi Strauss selling the blue jeans kind of idea. There was news yesterday that you had mentioned. Let me just bring this up on Big Digital. This is posted yesterday about this investment. Is there anything here we want to talk about really, or is that what you say?
Is Big Digital Assets is trying to be in a compliant-based system. They're trying to be in that area. And I believe this company, what was it? Zen Ledger?
Yeah.
Was it?
Zen
Okay,
Ledger.
I believe that they were to do with in the field of payment of crypto, like that they wanted. I believe what it was. I have to look more into this, but I think it was more along the lines of they wanted to have payment accessibility of crypto in the future. Into that, I think that before we share that completely with people,
but
maybe that might be for another segment.
Okay.
But they're more on the, like I was saying, on the compliant space, is what this business is. They're trying to be with regulation and compliance with what the governments want to do, and that's a big deal when it comes to these exchanges because of like what's recently happened.
Yeah,
other exchanges like Binance.
I just wanted to briefly say, you're an investor in Big Digital Assets. Yes. I have a fairly small position at this point, but I also own the stock. So just to be upfront about that, We also have another stock we want to go to. One of my weaknesses in life is that I tend to talk too long. So I know people's tolerance, they can always stay maybe with this. If we're done with big digital, if we got all the major points, is there anything else you want to say, or do you want to move on right now to Voyager?
I think we can move on to Voyager for sure.
So let me just bring this up on Yahoo, and here we have it. It's currently trading in the U.S. just below $15, up 7% today, and this is I think they've had some explosive growth. Now I'm scrolling down on the right before that ad, folks. You can see that they have had some big losses in the past where they were just getting established, and here in 2020 their revenues were not that great, but that is dramatically changing, and now they are, I'm trying to see if I have that price here, where their earnings are up here 65%. Look at this. Voyager Digital announces record quarterly revenues. This is from about 3 weeks ago, I believe. And by the way, the stock symbol on this one in the United States, you got a different symbol in Canada, slightly different, I think, but here we are. That's the stock symbol, and the stock price, as we said, is just under $15 now. I think about $14.77. So, what can you tell us about this that you want to bring up, Arthur?
So, with Voyager, the benefit to this company is part of the problem in the crypto space was people, where are they going to hold their crypto so it's secure? That was a big issue. And so Voyager was one of those apps that have been created for the general public to store their cryptocurrency on the app and actually earn an interest yield. So like a bank, right? And there's other companies in the space that are growing, like Celsius was one, and this is one my friend got involved with early on. And the interest yield business is a very important business within the crypto space because, hey, if someone can earn like 9% interest, this is like the future of the banking industry, and that's where Voyager comes in. Voyager makes a huge amount of money with, like we talked about, cryptocurrency volatility and the trades that are being placed on the platform. And I think they had a quarterly revenue of, what was it, Terry, $60.33 last March, was it not?
Yeah, I mean this. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Let's see. I don't know if I have that. Here we go. Let's see. We'll bring that over. I mean, it's growing tremendously, and their revenues, where before it was like $1 million. And folks, if you go to Yahoo Finance and put the stock symbol in, when we're doing these shows, the type here gets to be about 4 point. It's hard to read some of this off the screen when we're producing it. But one of the things, when I go to their web page, Arthur, I mean, here we have, you see, earn up to 12% interest. This is incredible. I mean, when you're looking at banks offering you below 1%. So this is, I think, somewhat of what you were kind of talking about. It's an interest play, huh?
When you think about it, like all people that are, the amount of users logging on to get Voyager accounts. Voyager is also coming out with a royalty program to people that own the VGX token are going to earn a higher interest yield on their principal investment that's in the app. So that's going to give people incentive to be part of Voyager. And also a problem right now that Voyager is solving, they call it an in-app swap, where if you own one cryptocurrency and you want to maybe like try to sell it or flip it over to something else where you see an opportunity that's maybe better than the cryptocurrency you hold. Usually before you had to go through an intermediary to buy the cryptocurrency, like you'd have to like take your cryptocurrency out of one app and go to a main cryptocurrency exchange your cryptocurrency, then transfer it back. There was a huge problem with that. And now apps like Voyager and the Celsius network is another one. they're going to be offering these in-app swaps. You can just do it all in a secure network on the Void platform. And that's solving a problem that, cryptocurrency is not going away. You can see, like, if we go to CoinMarketCap, you can see how many cryptocurrencies there are. This is a wave of the future of our financial system and what's going to happen long term here. So this is not going to change. This is only going to evolve. And so the way we see it is, right now it's still pretty new, and people are having problems with actually the accessibility to the cryptocurrency. And so Voyager Digital is solving that problem with being able to have in-app swaps, having all your crypto stored on the one app, generating the interest. Then you just have to ask yourself, well, if we find out that cryptocurrency is completely safe, and as the space evolves, you could say, if I'm already more interested in storing your money this way, why would someone want to store it for 1% when they could get 12?
Let me just bring up that. I mean, look at, as we're talking now, it's up to $15. It was like $14.77 or so, and we can see that is a one-day jump, 8.93%. Now it's not just been, the people in Humbl land are disappointed with the price. If we, look at this, we can see it, it's been overall a down market over year to date. But that said, you still have a lot of, I think, upscale. Because we're going so long here, we're at about 36 minutes. We've thrown a whole lot of information out here, and I think people would be advised to look at this a couple of times. Let me, by the way, just to remind you, if you haven't, there's the Voyager symbol. Let's kind of wrap up for about the last 5 minutes or so. Where do you see? We've talked about Voyager. We've talked about big digital assets, and let me bring that one up again as far as a stock symbol. This is the one where you're making money off the kind of tied to the Bitcoin and others. But where do you of these three big digital assets, Voyager, Digital, Humbl, do you have a preference, and do you see kind of an intersection? We talk about the digital financial revolution. And one of the things I guess I would say to people before I get your response, folks, look at how much more there is to this trend. And as I've said before, I like history, and I look at things sometimes, what is the history of my time? We looked at how the automobile changed the world, the internal combustion engine. We look at how back in the 90s, we had the internet explode onto the scene, first just as text, and that was amazing. And now look at what we can do, what Arthur and I are doing right here over the internet, and being able to talk like this. And so when we can communicate as we are, what does that do to things like AT&T, and just the old dial-up phones that I, grew up with? So I would say to folks, we have a company in Humbl that is, like 7 months old. And I think when you look at it and go, oh, wow, I bought it $2 and now it's 81 cents, I'm going to throw in the towel. You got to do what you got to do. I'm not your financial advisor, as it says right up front. However, I want people to see, just like those other revolutions of the automobile, just like the internet in more recent times, like the airplane, this is another major historical transformation of society, not just in North America, but more importantly in the second and third world nations around the world. And we're going to be helping to bring them up. So anyway, with that as my statement, let me have you jump in and kind of give us your own kind of thoughts about these stocks and how they all kind of fit into, what you see happening in the future of finance and how all this comes together.
Well, for me, like my objective with Voyager Digital and BIGG is because they follow so much pursuit with cryptocurrency specifically, where Humbl is more diversified. Humbl is something that's not following cryptocurrency per se. They have many different avenues that they're going in. So the way I see it is, like, for myself is, like I was telling Terry, is I want to try to free up capital because I see Humbl as the future, and free up capital to buy Humbl when it's low. So for me, like, I'm planning on maybe holding big digital assets and Voyager for maybe 6 months. There's been talk in the crypto space that the market is going to be what a lot of people have said at the highest in December, at the end of this year. And that's when I'm planning on maybe, selling out of some big digital assets in those positions, and maybe then placing that profits that I made into Humbl if Humbl is still low and still in the growing stages. I see the future with Humbl, and the upside to Humbl overall long term is probably higher because of all the avenues that Brian Foote wants to dive into. Basically, I see that Humbl can grow at an exponential rate. And when you look at Rob Luna and other people that got involved with Humbl, they said that they see a possible $1 trillion market cap in the long-term future ahead of us with what Humbl could do. And so I really think myself, I see that as I'm trying to build up as much shares of Humbl as I can, and do it under a situation where I have my initial investment out of the market. So I can basically have and own a free asset. And so when you own a free asset, it doesn't allow you to be an emotional trader. Like when you look at, Humbl being 81 cents and people staring at Humbl all day and worrying about it. If you're thinking long term on this and you're playing with free money, you could basically say, or profit money, you're going to be acting different in the marketplace, and you're not going to be emotionally tied to the swings of your stock going up and down. You're going to be attached to the long-term direction of where the stock could go in the next 5 or 10 years.
Right, and I think this is so, people, I know some people, I'm intuitive, I think, and I think that a lot of people, or some of the people watching me, if I talk about Humbl every day, he's like, this guy's been talking about it for 6 months and it's gone nothing but down. But I'm trying to have people see this for what it is. And as I often say, you're not buying Coca-Cola here. You're not buying something that's established in an established market. They are not only a new company, but they're a new company in a new sector of the world economy, where you cannot look at this in the same context as you would look at buying something else that's established and been around for a while, and as you were saying, Arthur, and we just look at these different products, whether it's Voyager Digital, whether it's big digital assets, and Brian Foote's one of the major. These are pioneers, if you think about it. They are, I like to think, because I'm a visual thinker, and I often say to people, if you can get the concept down, then the details start to make sense. If you visualize a icebreaker, and we've seen these pictures like you're looking down from an airplane, and this icebreaker is going through this sheet of ice, maybe in the Bering Strait of Alaska. And, it's got this path. Now what happens? Others then follow the icebreaker, right? Because the path has been cleared. Humbl as a company, and Brian Foote, Brian is the captain of an icebreaker. They're going where no one has gone before. They are making the trail that others will follow in. And this is the context, I would say, that you have to look at this. To the extent that starts to turn on, the other day I did a video and there was a picture of a woman in Africa with like wares to be sold on a table. And you think that's a marketplace. And those people are poor in part because they don't have access to a bigger marketplace. They don't have the infrastructure of roads, of electricity, and many things that we do. That's why we live the way we live. You know, Arthur is sitting there in a nice, comfortable place. I am too. You know, we have a high standard of living in North America that we tend to take for granted because we don't think about all the investments that preceded us that made this possible, including electricity. You know, Arthur's lamp on behind him. You know, and it was 120 years ago, there were a lot of people in the United States didn't have electricity. So there's a lot of places around the world that what we're talking about is not merely, you know, like selling Coca-Cola or selling automobiles like Ford. This is stuff that is going to transform human societies around the world in these, especially in these companies, or these countries, I should say, where they've been kind of economic backwaters and overlooked. So let me, we're as we approach 50 minutes in, Arthur, if you have any last words or something, I don't want to leave you, but I'll let you have a word.
Sure. Yeah, I really think, like, when I'm looking at, you know, being an investor and being new to this too, is you want to look for solving a problem. Like, that's where the money is made, is looking at the world and solving a problem and being part of solving the problem. That's where people are going to become millionaires. And there's a guy when I first started getting involved with investing that I listened to by the name of Stock Larry Jones. And it's been very helpful. And he mentions Millionaire Mindset. And so basically what that means is do what other people don't do. If you want to become wealthy and become rich, do what other people don't do. And so basically when looking at that, when people tend to sell their shares and things are going down and crazy, that's a buying opportunity, and that's where money is made. So he's basically talking about that and reading the economy the correct way. And so I see Humbl as no different. I see Humbl as going to be a possible future thing where it could really grow and grow aggressively based on all the areas that they're diving into. Like, they already have Olympic athletes. Rick Fox also, I believe, became part of the company in some way. He was an ex-professional basketball player with the Los Angeles Lakers, and he played with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. He's a well-known public figure. And, you know, when you look at these type of people getting involved with Humbl, you can see that this is a legitimate idea because of the kind of names that are getting associated, like Gabby Thomas, Olympic athlete, that that's also involved. That they just did the podcast with Brian Foote. She just did a Humbl podcast. You can see that Humbl's a legitimate thing, and also Rob Luna was a big name for getting involved. So you can see, like, the type of people getting involved with this company because they see opportunity. And so if they see opportunity and experienced people, you could say that, hey, that's a really, really good sign on the long-term picture and the long-term view of Humbl, and what the potential of an investor buying the stock at these cheap prices, what that could do for you in the future if Humbl becomes a significant company. And so, you know, that's what you're seeing, and you're seeing the type of people getting involved, and that's what you're basically betting on, is the personnel, the management team. All those things really matter when it comes to making an investment, and to want to hold the investment long term as well. When you have a good management team, it's easy to hold the investment because you know that they're going to execute their plan, and that's what it's all about anyway.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And you know, as we sit here on August 4, Robinhood, the trading platform, had their IPO. I just bring that up. I had friends who started off on Robinhood, and it's got a great graphic interface. But my point is here that it also kind of creates a mindset where a lot of the people on Robinhood, I think, has been documented, that they tend to be such young investors, and they think, not having invested for long, that investing in markets is a get-rich-quick scheme, or that's how it's supposed to happen. You invest and you make a killing in a short amount of time, and that's exactly the wrong mindset. And what you and I are talking about is the fact that we are jumping on the evolution of the digital finance revolution. Just as I made money, as I've often said, in Cisco, because it was a whole new trend in the evolution and building of the internet. So this is the same kind of thing, which is why I would say, I think, as Arthur has said, this is an opportunity that really doesn't come along very many times. You don't have these major changes. Again, you had in electricity, maybe in cars and stuff, these things that really just radically change the world. And if we look ahead and say 10 years from now, and we were to look backward, what was one of the most significant evolutions and changes in the world in 10 years? There's probably going to be a number of them, but I think the revolution of digitization, blockchain in the financial world, the moving of money, the storing of money, I think that's going to be one of the major themes that we look at.
Absolutely. And one thing when we see too is we now have a lot of online banking. We very rarely see people, if they absolutely need to, come into the bank, to do any kind of financial. They talk to maybe an advisor, they go to talk to a teller. That used to be the way. Now people do a lot of online banking. So I agree with you, what you just said, storing money, security, speed, and accessibility. These things are all going to be very important.
I'm just reminded how when I was growing up, the old line was, the check's in the mail. That's not going to be around any longer. The idea that you could float, something for a week or so, right? Well, Arthur, we thank you for joining us, if you have any last words. Otherwise, we'll sign off and let our viewers go rub their eyes after having watched this for close to an hour.
Well, thank you for having me on, Terry. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to maybe doing, if you want more future coming on the channel again, I'd love to, and maybe finding other opportunities to present and bring forth that where people can maybe see something when it's low and be able to do something where they can have an opportunity to make money, and maybe, if they want to build their Humbl investment through, you could say, profits, where they're not going to be emotionally tied to it, and they can want to hold Humbl long term because they can see the value in it just as we do.
This might be an unfair question. If you don't want to answer, that's fine too. But
Sure.
If you said in the next 5 years, what would be a realistic number, that valuation per share on Humbl, would you say that it could? You're not saying it will be, but in the next 5 years, Humbl could reach a per share price of what, would you say?
So before I answer that, this is what I would think. I would say if Brian Foote is able to execute on everything that he wants to do and get his business and grow and continue to acquire these other businesses that are becoming part of the ticketing that they're doing, like Tickery, and he mentioned he wanted to acquire a North American ticketing business. Let's say he gets lined up, and Athletes First was another thing that was mentioned.
And Monster he has on these NFTs, yeah.
Monster. So all these businesses, as they evolve and work for Humbl, right? And as the Humbl ecosystem evolves and becomes first widespread and adopted in our society, okay, and we're capturing revenue that way and becomes a thing. In the next 5 years, if all those pieces of this business are executed, one day this could be, $20 a share, $25 a share, maybe $50 a share. If you're waiting even longer, because we have to think how long was PayPal and Square in business for, that would be something to see when they first started and how long it took them to grow. You could say it could be a similar kind of growth pattern if they're very successful in all these avenues, right? So when looking at that one day, if someone wanted to hold it for the next maybe 5 or 10 years, maybe 10 years, if all these things are executed, becomes widespread adoption, you never know. It could be $100 a share one day. If it reaches that $1 trillion market cap that Rob Luna and some of the others are looking at and talking about, if it reaches that one day, you could be looking at $100 a share. If it reaches that market cap.
Yeah,
but first it has to reach that.
What I have said, and I would add, when we're at approximately 81, 82 cents, it doesn't matter. What I said, folks, what I would look at over the next 6 months is Humbl executing on their plan. Those are the benchmarks that I would look at more than, yeah, but what are their revenues? When I hear a question like that in the context of a Humbl, when it's only at the time 5 months old or something, I just know that is someone who can't really process information properly, because it's a dumb question. It's like asking what's a baby's batting average. It's too early to be asking that question. But are they signing up, as Arthur just said? Are they signing up a North American ticket company? How is Tickery's sales of tickets growing? Are they executing on the ETXs and these other lines? That's what we need to focus on relative to Humbl. And I might throw out for those, almost all of us are middle class. We just have variations of middle class in North America. But folks, you can go on to one of the, whether it's Ameritrade or Schwab, I don't care. But you might want to think as a parent about starting an account that you can open for one of your kids, or your kids who are like 4 or 5 years old. And you can have it as a custodial account. And if you threw, at 80 something cents, for gosh sakes, if you bought 100 shares for $85 and it goes to, $50 later or $100, I mean, hopefully you would add to that as you go along. But you can buy 100 shares for like $82 right now. And you have a child that might have another, obviously living 30 or 40 years ahead of them. That really is something that, my goodness, is worth considering, I would say. But for what that's worth. Arthur, before we close out, I already said this, but you had a good comment there. If there's nothing else, do you have anything else? And yes, I'd be happy to follow up with you. And I would say also, Arthur brings up, folks, the fact that here at HumblNation, we're not just sitting around in America. We're from around the world. And Arthur has a different background than mine. He lives in a different part of the world than I do. He sees things that I don't see by virtue of fact of his own educational difference and the fact that geographically he hears about certain things that I don't, just as people else were. A friend of mine brought up from Europe brought up the ZYX Zygen that I brought up, about treatment of pain. So what we're doing here is, I think, educating each other and offering the best information we have at the time, and then also trying to put it in context. And that's really what Money and Politics Now is about. Arthur, again, now anything left to say? If not, we'll say goodbye.
Sure. I just want to add one last thing. You mentioned something very important about, starting up a trading account, like parents starting up a trading account for their kids and putting a small amount of money to this. Actually, Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank investor that is well known, that's what his mother did for him. Is there was a portfolio that was built for him when he was a young child, and the mother did a really good job with doing this. I think she invested in some of the banking stocks in the early beginning, and I think that's what they invested in. But make a long story short, that's where a huge amount of Kevin O'Leary's initial wealth was created, from what I've heard. And so, exactly.
Whoops. Sorry.
Exactly the suggestion that Terry just mentioned was something that got Kevin O'Leary started in a large way in his life. And look at him now, he's a very successful investor, and his life is he's lived a pretty good life. And so his mother initially created that for him. So it was a very smart decision. And anyone is capable of doing this. It doesn't take someone to be rich and wealthy to do this. If they have a job and they're earning money, they can put a small amount of their paycheck away to get started, specifically for their family, for their, to generate generational wealth and to do this.
I just wanted to add, because that's such an important point. And here's the other thing I've often said. In life, 90% of learning is emotional and 10% is intellectual. And when I was growing up, my dad would talk about stock and investing. And if you put that money in, whether it's $85 to buy 100 shares or $40 to buy 50 shares, far more important is what's that going to do to your child being aware that, yes, my family invests in the stock market. And so I see so many people who are 50 years old or 60 years old, and they go, yeah, I know I should learn about this. I don't know how to start learning, which is another reason why I wanted to start this channel. But boy, if you could get your children to be investing and look it up, and that emotional tie to, oh, my money's growing, that is a great thing to do for your kids and to get them started. And then maybe, unlike so many other people, they pick up a book on investing. They look at YouTube videos now that we have, all this information that's available. It's never been easier to grow your wealth than it is today, folks, with all the information that we have and the digital platforms that are available. So I'll let that go. But Arthur, thanks so much for your time. I've been wanting to get you on camera for a while, and I know you're a busy guy, but I know we went long, folks, but I think you might want to watch this more than once and re-rack it and look at some of these things like big digital assets and Voyager Digital, and go to the coin marketplace website that we talked about. But thanks so much, Arthur.
No problem. Thank you for having me.